I'm Jono Buchanan, and in this video we're going to be looking at Logic's Bitcrusher plugin. Now, Bitcrusher is one of Logic's distortion plugins, but it has a specific role, and that is to reduce the resolution of the sounds coming into it. Why on earth we will want to do that? Well, in order to understand why we might want to use bitcrushing, what we need to understand first is the way that resolution works in audio. And the best way to understand that is to think about a video camera. Rather than thinking about audio, let's think about video instead. So let's suppose, for example, that we've got a video camera that's running at 30 frames per second. What that means is effectively it's capturing 30 images every single second. And that's what's called its frame rate. And the audio equivalent of that is called sample rate. Okay, how often a sound is captured in a second. Okay, so that's the first bit. But every time a video camera opens in order to take an individual picture, what it needs to then have is resolution, a way of determining what it can see every time it opens. And of course, how accurately it does that determines its resolution. And the same thing is true again in audio. Every time we open up our sample rate, what we're looking to do is to capture an honest, accurate picture of the sounds that we're listening to or trying to record. And if we deliberately make those a little bit less good than they might be, then we're beginning to just crush both sample rate and resolution, making the picture of what we're recording less accurate. And there are some really interesting sounds that can emerge when we do that. So there's the theory. Let's just begin to understand how we might put that into practice. So let's listen to the track we're going to be working on without any bit crushing in it at all just yet. Okay, so what I've got here are three elements which I've borrowed from the Apple Loops library, and to those I've programmed my own bass line, which is coming from Logic's Retro Synth. And that's the part we're going to actually bit crush, this first region up here at the top of our track. So where is the Bitcrusher? Well, it's in the distortion folder, which is here, and the Bitcrusher is the first plugin that you'll come to, and its plugin window looks like this. So what we find within the Bitcrusher is there are actually three separate ways in which we can crush either the sample rate or the resolution, as we've already discussed, using this plugin. And they are called fold, clip, and wrap. And what you can see over on the right-hand side is the way in which they're going to change the waveform of the sound that we're processing. The most straightforward one is clip, and it's the default option. You'll find it when you first open this up. And what bit crushing does, as you can see from the diagram, is it effectively just clips the top of a waveform. It turns our nice smooth digital signal into something which is a bit squarer, and as a result a bit less hi-fi, a bit less high quality. Now what we can do is to change both resolution and sample rate using this plugin. And what we're going to do first of all is to increase resolution to what's called CD quality, 16-bit, which is here, and we're using no downsampling. So we're selecting a resolution, which is the resolution that compact disc is. I was so tempted to say used to be, but of course they still exist. So we've still got our resolution at 16-bit. And what we've got then a chance to do is to select a downsampling rate, which effectively means that every time our sample rate is brought down, we're going to hear a change to the quality of that sound. Let's have a listen. Okay, so what you can hear are all these overtones, what we call aliasing, this kind of digital quality that we get when we downsample the sound. And it starts out being very subtle and it becomes much less subtle the longer that goes on. Okay, well, let's leave downsampling somewhere near good high quality. And in this context, what we're going to do now instead is to change the resolution. This is the quality of the picture every time the sound is effectively sampled. Okay, so what we're going to hear there is a massive breakup in how accurately the sound is heard compared to the original. Now, the moment we introduce the different modes, we'll begin to get a sense of how they vary in their approach to bit crushing. So this is fold mode using the same techniques that we've looked at. So what we're going to hear is that there are subtle differences between the ways in which the different modes apply their bit crushing qualities. And what we're able to do is to choose something that sounds like it might be quite interesting for our track. Now, what we've also got within the Bitcrusher is an opportunity to add drive. This is effectively pushing the input level into the processor, which is why the sounds sound a bit louder than they did when we first turned the plugin on. And what we've also got, rather brilliantly, I have to say, is a mix dial which allows us to make this a parallel process. So in other words, we could select quite an extreme resolution and downsampling amount, but what we could then do would be to blend our original unprocessed signal with our Bitcrush signal, setting a balance between these two separate positions, which allow us just to dial in a little bit of the bit crushing. So here's full bit crushing, and here's none. And lastly, what we have a chance to do is to choose our clip level. This effectively is the threshold for the Bitcrusher process that we're going to be working with. So it allows us to select the level at which bit crushing will start. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to find some settings that feel like they'll work well within the context of this track. Now, what you'll probably have noticed is that the kind of effect of this, particularly when we're working around the sort of 8-bit mark, for any of you who remember sort of early computer games and the SID chip from the Commodore 64, is we get this kind of interesting aliasing, particularly on the decay of sounds. We get the initial impact, and then as the sound is dying away, it sort of breaks up and becomes a little bit mangled in a way that will really make you, or take you back to those particular games if you remember them from back in the day, like I do, I have to say. Okay, so what we're going to do is just to find some settings that hopefully will work within this track. Let's see if we can find something that feels appropriate for this kind of slightly vintage sound. Yeah, I like that. So we've got this slightly dusty quality now, particularly to the end of those notes. So Bitcrusher is the kind of digital distortion plugin within Logic. And within this video, what we've had a chance to do is to explore its different modes and understand its parameters. And what we're discovering is that we can either really mash sounds up and almost make them unrecognizable from their originals, or just to add this particular time and place type of distortion from the early days of digital.